Hey, everybody, welcome to Outlier on Air, episode 423. This is the podcast where we talk to the founders, disruptors, and mavens of the world. As always, I'm your host, Ever Gonzalez. Thank you for being with us. On today's episode, we have Cynthia Johnson. Cynthia is a global entrepreneur, marketing professional, and author of Platform. Cynthia is also the co-founder of Bell & Ivy, a marketing and PR firm in Santa Monica, California, and Las Vegas, Nevada. Cynthia was listed as a top personal branding expert in 2017 by Entrepreneur, top 50 marketers on Snapchat by Mashable, top 12 female entrepreneurs that inspire by Darling Magazine, and top 20 people in SEO by Guardian. She is a contributing columnist to Entrepreneur and has had her work published in Forbes, Time, and several other industry-specific top-tier publications. Her first book, Platform, The Art and Science of Personal Branding, is available everywhere. We had a great discussion with Cynthia, but it was a short one. Because of a scheduling mix-up, we only had 30 minutes with her, but as you know, we usually go a little bit longer. It's still a great episode. It's short. We go all in. We talk about personal branding. We talk about corporate branding. And of course, we talk about the book as well. I think that this is going to be an episode that you're really going to enjoy. I think Cynthia is the real deal. We've had her out to Southern Utah to speak at our conferences, Founders Weekend. She was a keynote speaker. She killed it. The audience loved her. She really connected with them. I think you're going to be able to connect with her as well. So take a listen.
Time, weather, and always pass. Case of various
Cynthia, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Welcome back. You were on our show about a year and a half ago or so. You were episode 300. We made a big production out of it. It was a great episode. So for those of you that are interested, go back into our archives. Episode 300. Cynthia was an amazing guest, and we're having her back to talk about her. She has a new marketing agency. Well, not so new, but a new book as well. And we're looking to kind of reintroduce you to our audience. So again, thank you for being on.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Now, before we get started, let's start off with this. What makes you an outlier?
I'm an outlier because I don't have to work for anyone but myself. So I feel like that is the biggest part of me that would make me an outlier, is, branching off into this world of owning your own business and not having to work for someone.
Which is a big deal, right? I mean, a lot of people want to do it. Not everybody gets to do it. Some people try it. They're for whatever reason doesn't work out. So they're back into the corporate life. You've been able to do it and do it well at that. So we want to spend this episode talking about how you kind of transition from the corporate side to running your own show now. And then this new book that you have as well. We want to kind of dig in. So let's talk about what you're working on now. Bell & Ivy.
Yes. So Zach Binder and I started Bell & Ivy a couple of years ago, which is crazy to think it was a couple of years ago. And, it was just at first just the two of us at my kitchen table. And, we've all heard this story before. It's exactly how it happened. And we took on a couple of clients. We had some of them, in the early days, it was great. We didn't have very many, and we got to work, we were sort of figuring out what the service offerings would be based on who and how we could hire. And, we got to travel with some of our clients, places like Dubai and Iceland, and it was very exciting in the beginning. And we actually ended up hiring our first employee in August of 2017. And we, by the end in September, we had our first office in Santa Monica. By the end of the year, we had 8 full-time employees.
Whoa.
So we went from just us to that. And then, of course, in 2018, we continued to hire. We're about 12 full-time employees. We actually acquired a PR company back in May of 2018. And then as of 2019, we are in our second office, has opened in Las Vegas.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's crazy to go from, just the two of you around your table to like, being responsible for all these people and all these things. It's a very unique experience.
Yeah, when we had you out here in Southern Utah, my hometown, to come be a keynote speaker at one of our conferences, and that was it felt like right before this really hit. And back then, I mean, we brought you on because you were a marketing professional, obviously a keynote speaker. You were doing a lot of cool stuff that we wanted to have you talk to our audience, and you did a good job. Now, though, you are a business owner is on top of that. That's an entirely different, I don't know, way of thinking, doing things. Not only were you obviously very creative, but now you have to worry about the day-to-day stuff. How do you balance both right now?
The first and foremost is that, you pick a business partner, which is what I did, who is the exact opposite of you.
Nice.
So, we can really balance each other out and have conversations that matter. The second thing is having a business coach, primarily for me around communication, so that, because when you're starting a company, the most important thing in the beginning and as you're growing is to be able to communicate in a way that allows other people to feel that they can communicate freely and that no one's feelings are getting hurt or things are maybe not being said. Transparency in those growth phases is important. And then really, truly hiring people that you trust and respect, because again, in those early stages with growth, people respecting your employees and their lives and trusting that they're doing the job no matter where they are, for instance, or what they have to do that day, or if they took a long lunch, those things really become irrelevant, because you will be asking, or at least we were asking quite a bit of them in the beginning, because that's what happens when you're growing. People have to wear many hats. So the balancing comes from being able to lean on other people. I really couldn't do it alone.
And so it's working, the relationship, the connection, being co-founders. I like what you said in the beginning, kind of bringing somebody on that is the opposite of you, right? I mean, because I guess if both of you were great at this one thing, it kind of maybe wouldn't have worked as well. So he kind of picks up the slack where you kind of suffer, and vice versa. So congrats. I mean, I think that's one of the hardest things to do, being able to find somebody who is as passionate about the mission, but kind of has a different skill set. Was this kind of luck, or were you out looking for somebody like that? How did that happen?
So actually we had worked together for years, at a different agency and another company. So we knew each other, but what happened is I was considering getting an MBA, and I met with a teacher at this school who said to me, my advice to you is to not get an MBA, to find a really strong COO and ride this wave that you're on, because a lot of the things that you have available to you are exactly why people try to come to these schools to get an MBA. And he was like, if later it doesn't work out, you can always come back here. But right now, I know you want to understand all these things, but if you have someone that you trust that can handle the things that you are not as familiar with or don't want to do, then, you could really take off. And so that advice was amazing and completely sort of changed the direction of my life even. And so I went to Zach, and, we communicated this. I said, this is the advice I got. You're the only person I could think of. Do you want us to start this thing? And, it was a lot of planning in the beginning, and then we just went for it. So it was cool.
Other than maybe the employee part of it, right? Because employees bring an entirely different challenge, I think, to any organization, being able to manage them, no matter how great they are. Right. What have been some of the challenges from when you started to now?
Oh, well, the first thing is we started really quickly, as a lot of people do. Picked a terrible name. So then we were this brand marketing agency that had a terrible brand name. That was cool. That was, interesting. So we had to rebrand. The second part, I think, was figuring out between the two of us how we operate. So for me, I tend to do really well as far as getting work done in places by myself, but really great in teams to get messages across. Zach is like loves the structure of an office. So I was like, let's just have this team that's everywhere. But he really like thrives in an environment with an office. And to be honest, he was right. So if he's listening, congratulations. And so those little decisions that seem little in the beginning, but actually change the direction or the course of the business. That would be another one. Name. Then we, the structuring of the company, we had ended up changing it from an LLC to an S Corp at one point. And then the last thing is figuring out, how do you bill people? Is it automated? Do they pay for it? Like those things were a challenge because as we started growing, we realized we had access to less time and less time to even communicate to each other what we were trying to do and the issues we were facing. And so those just structural decisions in the beginning were probably some of the hurdles that we faced.
And right now, though, it sounds like a lot of those challenges are behind you, right? I'm assuming that as you continue to grow, others are going to arise. But what I like about you is that obviously you are doing something that you know well, something that you're passionate about. People seem to be, I don't know, inspired by the work that you do. Looking through your list here, I mean, you've been, let's see, top personal branding expert by Entrepreneur Magazine, 50 marketers on Snapchat, top 20 female entrepreneurs that inspire by Darling Magazine, and the list goes on and on and on. Obviously, you're doing something right. So as an expert, for all of us that are listening that they kind of want to get better at our marketing, our branding, is it an art or is it a science when it comes to marketing ourselves, branding ourselves, our companies, those type of things? Or maybe a combination?
I look at it, it's definitely a combination, but it's almost like being an artist. The art always comes first. The science comes later.
Mm-hmm.
And, figuring out what you care about. I think also what a lot of people tend to miss is treating people how you want to be treated. And sometimes that, as a business owner, you are the face, you are everything in the beginning. And, slowing down and making sure that the conversations you're having are meaningful. And if not, don't have them. Like, don't put your phone down for a second. Make sure that if you're going to take the time to communicate to someone that you're really doing that. That's the art part, because anything you do online to portray an image will fall apart very quickly if you're not actually living it. That's the first part. And then understanding that, as just as an artist, branding's as a personal brand is the same thing. Just because it doesn't look perfect or the same as everyone else's doesn't mean it isn't still art. So figuring out the balance of who you are and how you communicate. I do my best to be in this very rigid, organized schedule, but I'm not. There are times where it doesn't work out, and it's kind of just a piece of who I am. And it works really well when I add the science part, because transparency and really intentional communication, people forgive you, right? And then that's what's inspiring, is to have people around you that support you and understand you and truly kind of get what you're doing. So I think it's great that you said art, because art is, what do they say, in the eye of the beholder? Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. Once you sort of understand, like, hey, I don't want to spend all my time on LinkedIn, I'll move to this platform, or I don't want to talk about this. Get those decisions made quickly, and then let it, test and let it flow. Don't beat yourself up over every single mistake or something that, didn't go as planned.
Is your approach different when you're trying to build a personal brand for one of your clients as opposed to a company brand, or are the steps somewhat the same?
They're slightly different. So with a personal brand, the first thing you want to do is get an idea of what the person cares about, how much time they think they have, and how much time they really have.
Hmm.
And the reason is that to portray an honest picture, because everyone is someone that other people want to know. If you're truly yourself, that's, people love that real person. So if you're, say, a very busy executive, okay, and you come to us and you want some personal branding, help you get on some boards or better deal flow, whatever it is. Well, and I look at your schedule and you want to do all of these things, but I know based on what your lifestyle is like in the first, maybe week or so, you can't accomplish all those things. We'll scale it back. 1, 2, we don't want you to look like you have a bunch of time if you don't. That's not authentic. If you see the CEO of, let's say Tim Cook is flying all over the world, but then he's, posting on LinkedIn 7 times a day with 30 hashtags. You're like Tim Cook, what are you doing? Like, this is either not you or you're not doing a good job. So finding, that real person in there, and then identifying specifically what the goal is and working toward achieving that, instead of trying to be everywhere just because you think you should be or because it's available. Whereas with a corporate brand, you have lots of different pieces and lots of different things to communicate. So you have the internal communication, you have the external communication, stakeholders. So you want to make sure that there's consistency. Brands are not busy. Like, brands are not supposed to not have time for something. We have an expectation. And so it's a little bit of a different approach when looking at how to communicate, because you want to make sure that you're available if someone has an issue and so on. It's not necessarily the case with a personal brand.
Which makes sense, obviously. And I think that's the kind of information that we're hungry for, right? Those of us that are trying to be better with our marketing, with our branding, whether it's personal or corporate. And that kind of leads into what I want to focus on for a little bit of the rest of the episode here, is your new book, Platform, right? I'm assuming that we're going to get a lot of good information in there. Let's talk about it a little bit.
So it's the book's Platform, The Art and Science of Personal Branding. So kind of fits into the conversation really nicely. So I wrote this book for people that don't have all of the time in the world. There are 2 ways to do personal branding. There's building a brand that you can lean on to, become a personality, for say, right? And then there's this other type of personal brand where that you're all over the internet, or that people are searching for you and can't find you, and you're at the top of your game, or you need career advancement, or you have a business you're supporting, whatever those things, those key elements are, and you don't really know how to participate in personal branding because it looks very complicated and time consuming. So you just do nothing. And I wanted to present an idea of how people in this situation can really achieve their goals without overextending themselves or making it overcomplicated to the point where they just, don't even want to try. So the book itself is full of the why, examples of how to communicate, what you're communicating, how to search yourself and see what other people are seeing and remove it. And then throughout the book, there are online elements. So the how-to, it will be online. And the reason we did it that way is because I started writing this book 2 years ago. And if I had put what was useful in this tactical from back then into a book that printed now, it would be outdated. So
really, it's that quick, right?
Right. Yeah. So at least if it's online, I can update it and make sure that anybody who picks up the book isn't getting old information.
It's funny because obviously we all know, and I think our audience, knowing them, they're kind of on the same boat with me, where we're kind of running our own companies, our own business, our own businesses, our own projects, where we don't have the time that necessary to kind of build our online brand, right? Our corporate brand. Maybe we should a little bit more, but it feels like we look at these media influencers, these online influencers. Their job, for the most part, is to work on their Instagram accounts, their their Facebook accounts, those type of things. Where a lot of my audience, we're working on something else, and then this kind of falls off of our to-do list. I think it's one of the things that we sacrifice first. So this book is going to help us be able to kind of do all of it. It sounds like.
Exactly, because this book was written by me, and I don't have all the time in the world. So, I think that just really saw, and I definitely saw an opportunity here, because people like you said, like you have to take care of the core business, because that's what matters. And everything else becomes sort of secondary. And at some points it can be harmful, but with anything, if you're deliberate in your actions and expecting a very specific outcome, then you can really shrink that to-do list down significantly, and not have to spend hours in a day, because on top of all of this, most of us have families and friends, and want to make sure that those people are getting the attention from us as well. And it doesn't necessarily look great if you're like, to your wife, you say, I can't make dinner tonight, I've got to go home and like I gotta be home.
That's not going to go over very well for sure.
Yeah. And you can't hide it, it's on the internet. So
that's right.
It's timestamped. So that's the type these are the people I wanted to get to, and a lot of them are the real experts, right? Like the people that are doing the work.
Yeah.
That is an insight into industries that we don't often get.
I'd love being able to use my platform, Outlier, the things that we do with the podcast, with the conferences, and be able to kind of highlight and help and promote other entrepreneurs, other podcasters. I love doing that, right? I use Outlier to do that every single day. But then I also know that it's important for me to grow the Ever Gonzalez personal brand. And for some reason, I have the hardest time with that. I'm a little gun shy with being able to share information or pictures or things that I'm doing, but I know it's important. Is that one of the things that we would be able to do?
Yeah. So that's one discussion, is that with people that are like yourself and other, there's this shyness that comes with sharing too much or seeming like you're oversharing, those types of things. And what you actually do a really fantastic job at is building a community around it, which is you include people. And if it's inclusive, it doesn't feel like you are showing off, because
I like
you're
that.
sharing. And the second thing is, if you are the right person to be doing something, and if you sharing it could change things for the better, or you would be noticed or advance in your career because you're the right person, and you don't do it, or if you don't say something, when you're the expert and that it's being blasted as incorrect, then you're part of the problem. And that we're seeing, false information is everywhere, and real people with real expertise are seeing it, and we sit back and we say, why didn't they come to me? I know the answer. I'm an actual scientist. But the reason is because they don't know you're there. So it's good to think about it as, it's really not about you. It's about making sure that people know that there's counter opinions, communities, groups, and that people just like them are capable of doing incredible things. So, and I actually think you do a really fantastic job. You are the first podcast I was ever on, ever.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And your Facebook groups are great. Your events are great. And again, like I said, very inclusive. It's a really nice balance.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that before. I guess if we're building a community, it's, I have a hard time kind of focusing on the attention on myself, but I guess if you're building that community, it should be a little bit easier and better. So absolutely. Thank you for that. I'm going to use that for sure. What, I know we have to wrap up. You have a busy schedule. You're, in New York and all over the place, but for those that are interested, that want to get to know you a little bit better, follow you online, obviously get the book. Where can we find you online?
So you can find me at cynthialive.com, and then on Twitter, Instagram at cynthialive, and then feel free to email me cynthia@cynthialive.com. And you can find the book on my website as well.
Perfect. So Outliers, you can go to outlierhq.com. That's outlierhq.com. First of all, subscribe to the podcast, rate, review it, share with your friends. But there we're going to have links to Cynthia's websites, social media accounts, and obviously to the book. She's the real deal. We've been following her for quite a while now, and we love everything she's doing. So, Cynthia, congratulations on the success, on the book, the new office, the company, and we're going to continue to follow you moving forward.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on again.
Absolutely. Outliers, we'll talk to you tomorrow.